Before we begin, this video will contain spoilers for the final arc of Bleach for those who have not read or watched the series. At the climax of the Thousand Year Blood War arc, Yhwach's powers are temporarily nullified by the still silver arrowhead shot by Uryu, giving Ichigo a small window opportunity to retrieve his Zanpakuto and deliver the final blow. As Yhwach's powers slowly return, he moves to break Ichigo's Bankai once again. However, the white outer shell of Ichigo's blade shatters, unveiling the true Zangetsu underneath, which notably has similarities to his original blade that he wielded since he obtained his own Shinigami powers at the end of the Substitute Shinigami arc. It is this very blade in which Ichigo used to cut Yhwach in two, thus ending his threat for good and saving all worlds from merging into one. For a while, I didn't fully understand what had happened during this moment upon my first read-through of Bleach. After rereading a few times and looking at other interpretations, I feel like I've reached some level of understanding regarding the significance of unveiling the true Zangetsu blade underneath. To me, the reason for this is quite simple. It is the representation of Ichigo's individual choice and how he shapes Zangetsu. Prior to the events of Thousand Year Blood War, the Zanpakuto Ichigo had been wielding for a large chunk of the story couldn't be considered a true Zanpakuto because it wasn't forged by Uetsu Nimaya, though its creation had a similar foundation since Aizen created the artificial hollow known as White using a similar method. Adding on to this, in Kubo's club outside, he states that Zangetsu was one of the only two Zanpakuto, the other being Saifushi, that did not possess a sheath, thus the blade wasn't its correct shape. After all, Zangetsu primarily had bandage wraps in its base form. There is also the fact that Ichigo's power was mostly suppressed by Old Man Zangetsu, thus it is safe to assume that the blade Ichigo had been wielding is not fully representative of his true self, especially in Bankai form. All of this was rectified when Uetsu reforged Ichigo's Zanpakuto, and it is also during this time that he realizes that White is the true source of not only his hollow powers, but his Shinigami side as well. Old Man Zangetsu, on the other hand, is the source of his Quincy powers, taking the form of Yhwach from 1,000 years ago. Accepting both spirits as Zangetsu, without lies or any more misunderstandings, leads to the birth of the dual blade Zangetsu Ichigo wields, one representing White, one representing Old Man Zangetsu. As an additional note, I have come to understand that up until this moment, Old Man Zangetsu wasn't officially recognized as a Zanpakuto spirit, so now he is more naturally integrated as a part of Ichigo that makes his fractured identity whole. Going back to Kubo's Club Outside answer, he also states that one of Ichigo's blades acts as the sheath while the other is the blade. I believe it's fairly obvious which is which. The longer blade representing White sheathes the blade representing Old Man Zangetsu. It's kind of interesting in my eyes since it seems like a reversal of how things once were, where Old Man Zangetsu was clearly the one in control, while White was only called upon when necessary. But that's just a nice little thought I wanted to share. When Ichigo goes Bankai, he is giving his blade its correct shape, and thus has a full blade at his disposal. Since this is the case, why is it that the true Zangetsu underneath resembles what he had before? As I've said, it is Ichigo's individual choice to shape his blade as such. Essentially, he turned a lie into truth, and that truth is what carries him forth to cut down the crushing wheel of fate in which Yhwach now embodies. Sure, Zangetsu prior may not have been the true representation of Ichigo's Zanpakuto, but he chooses it regardless. This is probably what Kubo meant in that same Club Outside Q&A where he states that Ichigo can choose the dual Zangetsu blade if he wants, since in the No Breathes from Hell one-shot chapter, he is wielding his OG blade. You could say at that point in time, Ichigo has consciously made the decision to keep Zangetsu in its prior reforged state, since it is one he is more familiar and intimate with despite its initial foundations. It is also fitting for the blade that cuts Yhwach down to basically be the one influenced by Old Man Zangetsu. It's as if a piece of what the Quincy King could have been rejects the present incarnation. It isn't far-fetched to see the similarities between Yhwach and Old Man Zangetsu, the most striking one being their assertive control over those they govern. Unlike Yhwach, who asserted himself as the father of the Quincy's, using them merely as tools to further his goals and as fuel to sustain his own life, Old Man Zangetsu gave Ichigo his autonomy back after initially fearing the danger he'd put himself in if he became a Shinigami. Seeing things through Ichigo's eyes changed Old Man Zangetsu's perspective, and so he rightfully steps aside, trusting his child to move forward in life free to use his power however he defines it. There is also the cyclical factor in play. The end is the new beginning, a new cycle for that matter, which is of course best emphasized by how the first and last chapters of Bleach share the same name, plus how Kazui first meets Ichigo, which parallels Ichigo and Rukia's first encounter. Taking this a step further regarding Ichigo choosing to maintain the original form of Zangetsu, he is also rejecting the world Yhwach wished to create. Yhwach's abilities, the Almighty and Ausvalen, best represent his control over everything, thus cementing his role as the embodiment of fate, which is solidified after he absorbs his father Adneus, aka the Soul King. If the Quincy King had his way, all things would have a drastically different form unrecognizable to the masses both living and dead. They'd be forced to constantly confront things that weren't meant to be seen or interacted with, leading most likely to an existence of stagnation and chaos. Ichigo cutting him in two with the form of Zangetsu he freely chose is a testament to keeping things as they are without change being forcefully imposed upon everyone. The current state of existence isn't perfect, but it is one of freedom. Death brings change, and change allows growth, new perspectives, new lives, new choices. Thanks to the resolve and courage of Ichigo and the bonds he's made between friends and former enemies alike, that world is maintained in spite of death's ever-looming presence. Anyway, these are simply my thoughts and interpretations. I just wanted to share them since I've got nobody else to really express my enthusiasm for Bleach with. I simply sought to give it a shot interpreting this pivotal moment which will be brought to life in anime form this year, but I'd also love to hear your own individual interpretations down below. I love seeing different perspectives to better understand an author's work. I'll admit, I was pretty nervous when making this video, and I hope it came out alright. I'm not sure how frequent my uploads will be since I'm new to this whole content creation gig, and I'm learning what rhythm works best for me as I go. Bleach won't be the only thing I'll talk about on this channel, but it's always best to start out with something you're more intimately familiar with. So, with that being said, thank you for watching, and have a good day.